Hey you guys, it's MJ from All to Love. How are you? So today is May 24th and I there's actually like a few little noodles that came through, and one of them was this theme of, as a humanity and in our sort of disconnected state, we've become on an egoic level, we're quite addicted to drama. We love yeah, I suppose the drama of life often gives us a feeling of self importance, and hence, in a world, the economy essentially thrives off of people's sense of not belonging, people's sense of unworthiness. And of course, this is deep, it's profound, it's not necessarily obvious. Adrienne Elise talks about that, of like the stuff that we talk about sometimes. If you were to just go up to somebody in the street and be like, your deeply feeling of unworthiness is limiting you, they'd just be like, pardon me? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's that we're not necessarily aware, because the entire world is based on that wound of separation, which is the disconnected sort of veil that has been sort of perpetuated. And so we have this sort of convoluted outworking of our own misinformed projection, how we perceive ourselves in this world, how we operate. And I kick my own self with this stuff, because on the up days it's like, we're gonna be manifesting everything we desire, and it's all shifting now, and the events, and yada yada. And I think sometimes, and I must do it, this anticipation, this feeling of like, when are things gonna shift? Because for more and more and more people, this isn't like new. This isn't a new conversation. This is a grassroots movement that has been probably happening since the dawn of time, but certainly a lot of us, we would have an awareness of like this sort of energy making itself manifest in the 60s with a revolutionary, fundamental shifting, from a mass group of humans. And I think I'm hearing, America's about to blow. And that's not a scary thing necessarily. What I'm talking about usually is emotions. So more and more and more people are not able to repress, suppress, deny their emotions. It's becoming an obvious sort of, I want to say, like, clincher of our disparity, of our inability to connect. Because what I notice is that people connect via the material world. They don't connect via their feelings. They don't necessarily connect via the heart. They're and depending on where someone is in their life, they could be so invested in their control patterns, as in almost like purely in the pain body basically, and just going around in like these patterns of control to be a good person, to be a good person, to be a healthy person, patterns of control. And then whenever something comes along to disrupt those patterns, it can throw the whole game. It can throw off our ability to be well. It can throw off our ability to be present with people. It can throw off any number of things. And so as much as like a week ago, it's like, this is the turning point month. Like, this is the month that everything's gonna change. And then, and then you're like, oh, and there's so much intense energy right now. I, at times, almost feel a bit floored by it. The density, and this has been coming up for all year. I'm not, this is the perspective I share with you guys. This energy, this deep, dense, and intense energy it feels like it's been just like the black goo, been slowly but surely rising to the surface of our beingness to be shown, and we're just like, I see it. I don't like it. And like, so we're in these patterns, we're in these cycles yet again. Some of them we're drawing in consciously, some of them we're looking at going, yeah, and consciously releasing, letting go of. Remember, it's pretty much the same thing. Like, an invocation of a higher truth or a higher order is essentially a release of a less than. Oftentimes, obviously, we have to be present with the less than. And this is something that I'm acutely aware of. You know, the stuff that I talk about isn't for everybody, because I'm aware that for some people, working a job is perfect for them. You know, working a 9 to 5 was just never something that I could do. I can't quite describe it. Physically, yeah. Emotionally, spiritually, no. And that ultimately, if you're not connected to emotion, spirit, it's sort of like a recipe for a pretty miserable existence, I would say. Hence why we attach ourselves to the dramatic stories that we have, why we attach ourselves to the things we get to buy. And I just right then was like, yeah, and I guess that's why people can get offended or triggered. It's like, this is me just noodling, but then I'm aware, I'm like, oh, yeah, because this is how people live their lives, right? And energetically, a trigger is just meaning that somebody says something or does something that makes you be like, what? Like, but that's right. That's the right thing to do because mama died and told me to. Or that's the right thing because society said it was. And you're like, okay, like, but that's not my perspective. That's not how I live my life. And so it mustn't necessarily be the only way. It for you might be the right way, but it's not the only way. And it's helping or vibrating with people that just because there's their way of being, it doesn't make it right or wrong. And that, like, from within the self, for me, that is a game changer. It helps us to drop the people pleasing. It helps us to, like, basically just not give a russ what other people are doing or thinking about you, because you're you and you're meant to be you, and there's only you who can be you, so you might as well be that, you know? And ultimately, the deeper, the denser, and the more intenser that we're living this, the more we're assisting with this collective shift. I have to make I need to share this with you guys, that some of you who are really sensitive and stuff, like, it will get better if you just keep going, if you just keep having the faith. You know, when we're in the depths and when it's been days, maybe even weeks, maybe even months, like, there's a huge sense, certainly in me, where I'm like, this too shall pass. You know, it's that classic thing of, devil, get thee behind me, this too shall pass. And whether it's, again, one day, 1 month, or 1 year of just like facing your shadows and being with your being, you know, rather than distracting ourselves in the perpetual race of life, which isn't serving us. Like, that perpetual race ultimately is perpetuating our misery on earth and enslaving us. And now we're seeing these next generations who have gone through the system fully and have worked jobs and been hardworking and da 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 da. They get screwed over with pension issues, or like, it's just that insanity is becoming more obviously insane, and that is continuing to purge. I don't like that word, but it's continuing to clear out. I have to noodle with that. Our ancestry, our lineage. And this is something, again, like, we can pretty much trace, and it could likely be in cycles, and it could have something to do with the planets and the collective, but our, pardon me, breaking all this stuff down to be able to step into the power of your beingness is a really monumental process. And yet the dominant masses are still sort of projecting out the 3D reality, but energetically, because more people and more people and more people are shifting consciously, it's destabilizing the dominant mainframe, you could say. It's like glitching the system, and hence the likelihood of a continuation of mass spontaneous awakenings. And I mean, okay, so straight up, that is something that has kind of been with me as a guide, like since my early spiritual awakenings. And yes, I can say that quite accurately. Like when you have the spontaneous sort of experiences, it can really fuck you up. Yeah, any sense of like 3D programming or reality for me was not like from the moment of like the conscious surrender, the series of events that totally like shapeshifted my perspective, me, and then like, you know, being guided from that point onward, right? And but in the dark, but from the heart and consciously. So as in I'm watching myself all along going, what the fuck is happening, right? And then so that's like almost 20 years ago, right? And so I'm this random human on the planet being guided. And then in the last few years meeting more people on this similar kind of like weird spiritual journey, like coming out of the woodwork, you know, pioneering brands and businesses based on that, which is radically energetically different from, it's the reverse really of from the 3D paradigm. But so someone like me has this awareness that when you're in 3D, you might, because I was I was a spirituality, like whatever yoga, as in I was doing Bikram yoga, you know, for weight loss, and yet I had these awakenings which triggered me to the point of 20 years on living this kind of weird and radical existence. And yet along the way, when I would have like meltdowns, right? Hey Scott, how are you? Ugh, yeah, mess-tastic. So yeah, and so along the way, I just had this like profound intuitive knowing that like awakenings happen to us. So as in, especially when people be like, Molly, you're too idealistic, you know, like the planet is people never gonna change, or, you know, whatever sort of, which again, my whole freaking life, why don't you just be a teacher and then, you know, and yet, no, that was never gonna be the case. That was not meant to be for me, you know? Anyway, Blabfest from MJ. Yeah, the point being is that, like, the world's waking up whether we like it or not, and I'm aware that even though it can feel pretty dense and intense and, like, and seem like nobody else is shifting, or, like, sometimes this happens, I don't know if you guys get this, sometimes I look around at humanity and I'm like, oh my god. Like, oh my god, it's getting worse, right? intense, right? Oh wait, what else did you say? You've been lighting up for me today. Nah, have you been to the wedding? No, that's tomorrow. I've been awake allows us to stick to our intuitive ideas, right? That's very true. And I think that's what I, like, at this point in my life, I'm so freaking thankful to have intuition, to be connected to intuition, to like truly not give a ass about like the keeping up with the races and stuff. By the way, this is a fail. This right here, my friends, is called a fail. A zero waste fail. Because it's in the hotel room. It's the only one in the hotel room. So I'm using a cup, and like it's paper, so it's probably not that bad, but it looks like there's some weird like film on it, which then I'm thinking like, is that biodegradable? Is this something else that's gonna pollute everything? And then that, I don't know if you guys get this, any of the enviro peeps, but they're like zero waste peeps as well, but fuck, man, like traveling and like moving through airports and stuff like that, and I'm calling my own bullshit out, by the way, because I'm like, yeah, I had my cupper water bottle, but I didn't bring my coffee cup. And I should have done. I like, as I share this vulnerably with you guys right now, I'm literally like, God, why didn't you? It was in your car. Like, I drove to the airport, got all my shit, and just forgot to grab the keep cup. So as I'm thinking, well, they don't have any cups in here. They could have done, or I could have brought my own. Anywho, I digress, but I do like to call this kind of stuff out because when I'm traveling, the zero waste sort of consumption vibrashe just seems to like, yeah, just shine at me so hardcore. And not only that, but like the next level hardcore is the fact that like I'm seeing all this trash everywhere, and then like all the lovely people, just including myself, stuff, plastic stuff everywhere is the stuff, and I love it all. And but no consciousness, you know, no just moving through, you know, moving through things. So, oh, interesting. So then I have in parentheses here, I have imagination, manifestation. So deep, intense, deep, dense, intense. And I don't know why, but this might be relevant for some of you. Stuff that's coming up for me in my body. And I don't know why I'm thinking of like a pantomime, but I'm hearing, it's behind you. It's behind you. And I'm like, okay, like what the F? But again, intuitively in my body, I get it. I get it with like sensation and where it's manifesting in my body. I get it with like how I'm seeing myself from an old perspective, and yet I'm in review of like all these different patterns, but they're no longer like the hatred and the fear, the self-loathing that I look at. I don't know if this is gonna make any sense to you guys, but like, yeah, so I'm not looking at my self-hatred anymore in front of me, i.e. in the mirror. Again, it's weird. I'm looking at it or I'm feeling it behind me. And again, it's quite a physical thing. So like I feel energies around my back and my arms. I feel energy around my ass and my thighs. And even though again, it's uncomfortable, like it's uncomfortable in my body. And this energy stuff has been coming up all year, all months, all 5 months. But I think because we keep thinking we want it to be done, it keeps coming up being like, like worse than ever. And you're just like, actually, can I be done with this suffering pattern, right? And you guys know that I'm essentially all about freedom. You know, like I'm not interested in the conventional 3D pathways to creation and manifestation. I'm interested in you figuring out who you are, being bold enough to go after that, and then ultimately claiming your freedom, claiming your sovereignty, right? Excellent. Teach self-awareness, right? So, and I really appreciate that. I love, and I gotta kind of say this, like, this is all to love, and this is my business. This is how I share and invite people to work with me. I tend to attract people just purely on flow based on the sharing here. And I'm increasingly aware of discernment in exchanges and energy. And I absolutely love this community. But I gotta say, like, I'm in my flow and I'm doing my thing. And I think sometimes there's a relatability, which is wonderful. And I don't even know what I was gonna say, really. But I'll sit with that, actually. I'm not gonna keep going on that expression. I just saw one hot min go, agreed. Okay, and here's the polarity that I'm getting with this thing in parentheses in my notes that's saying imagination manifestation. From this discussion of deep, dense, and intense. So we're writing out these energies that are behind us, i.e. the lineage, the ancestry, and at the same time, energetically, they are behind us. We're not moving into this discomfort, we're shedding this discomfort so that we can move into higher realms or more expanded magnetic realms, you could say. The magnetism has to do with the amplification of our energy, so we become a more powerful magnet. Right, and so and then we basically, from that greater magnetism, the way we electrify our world, i.e. project our vision out into the world, that becomes an amplified reasoning, that becomes an amplified projection. And so as our magnetism becomes more powerful, our ability to manifest becomes more powerful. Here's the thing though, we do have to continue to be responsible, because it also means we can magnetize the other. At the same time, when I say that, that's BS for a lot of us here, because it's like we can't continuously be hard on ourselves about what we're manifesting. We just have to keep facing the manifestation and dealing with the shaz. Holding together two worlds. Interesting. The magnets, these now, they often have a smoky look around them. Oh, interesting. Energy from Earth. Interesting. Isn't it plasma? Plasma. Isn't that interesting? And this is, I guess, where it comes back to like all these chats and discussions or whatnot. It's like our intuitive abilities are coming online, right? Yeah, and it's funny, right? Because again, when it comes to manifestation, this is the stuff that a lot of us would have been noodling with years and years ago, and now it's making itself manifest, right? And I want to say, with the depth and the intensity of this cycle, like the imagination that we're pulling through, we're magnetizing, is pretty beautiful. That for a lot of us, there is a sense of a finish line here, and or a new phase beginning. And or when you look at phases, it's like closing a book and opening a new one, opening a new book, and then you're just like, wait, it would be like this. New book of life. And it's just empty, right? So what you gonna write? You know, what kind of story are you gonna write for your life? And as I say that, I'm like, to be fair, it's like, I got little distracted because I looked at one of your comments. I'm like, yes, you're seeing the light body, the plasma body. The liquid light that we all are. I like that, liquid light. When I meditate, and when I share meditation with clients, I often have like the golden elixir. So it's like you pour in the golden elixir, and then you become the golden channel of light. And what was that little comment there, Plasma? Or liquid, we are a book of books. So true, right? And that's something I feel a lot about, where I'm like, and a bless, it's like, it's a lovely thing. People wonder like, have you seen this or heard of that, and and I just, it's great. I'm at a point where it's pure intuition, self-study, vibrashe. So I don't ingest or exchange with a lot of other channels, a lot of other information, because this is just where I'm at right now, right? So we will continue to clear the denseness or density and the intensity here, in the depths that we're in. It's like, and okay, let me start to finish this. The density is going to continue to show us our shadow and our shit. More of us are going to be consciously aware of transforming it. That includes physical patterning in the body as well. And so basically, stand in your light and stand down the shadow. Like, be the light, staring at your old misery, staring at your old depression, staring at your shitty jealousy, staring at your self-belief of your disgustingness, whatever it might be at any given moment. See it. Be like, I see you. I know that this has been created for my own experience, or I know that this is behind me, right? I might be staring at this now, but I know that this is an old projection of a girl I used to hate, and so I'm now gonna let her go, and I'm gonna shed her and know that she's behind me, and know that she is safe, and know that she is loved, and know that she is. That's another element of shedding the shame, is that weirdly we have to lean into the shame. We have to be able to, like, go back to some of those traumatizing experiences and, like, lean into that fear of your disgusting abandoned self, right? Lean into her or him and be like, oh, I love you though. Like, I don't want to banish you. And then weirdly, the beingness that you are begins to reflect back the love that you're now giving to yourself, where before we were taught to deny it and disconnect from it, right? Oh yes, go. So it's that, and this is, I talk about it in the book as well, but that's where the leaning in vibe is often the most counterintuitive thing. As is, I'm getting something out about toxicity and the people we choose to be around. The more sensitive you become, the more energetically despairing toxicity will be. And toxicity, to me, is denial. Toxicity is only bred through denial, ultimately. And let's face it, we live in a world that's in a whole lot of denial about what's going on. Ooh, I like it, Scott. Lean into it or be dragged by it. Right. So the leaning in is the facing it, the facing of the shadow, the owning it, the transforming it, the leaning into it. And then, the rejection or the denial of it is then, it's like distorting that energy, and then that energy will just keep coming back in different forms perhaps, but the energy of divide and conquer, blame and attack, whatever it might be, divisiveness based in our separation wound, that keeps looping back until we face our shame, we face our darkness, we face whatever it is that's creeping up, our ugliness, our lowly everything that's basically attached to us just being these separate pieces of meat that just live and die and are here to be slaves. That story is ultimately what we're transforming here now by saying yes to something different. Yes to humans being generous. Yes to humans being caring. Yes to love. Yes to the truth of your light. Yes to a global change, So it's really, really about us just saying yes in one direction, and sort of creating a bubble of our past, or a bubble of our present of shittiness, and saying, oh, you're all right. Like, I didn't know any better. That's why, nor did anybody else. This is that energy responsibility piece, is that often is the case, is that our anger isn't justified. And this is actually a lesson in A Course in Miracles. Anger is never justified. However, it's probably why I had to write the Fearless Life Guide, is that, however, anger is. And so long as our humanity, the story of our humanity, is violent in nature, we as beings have to address our anger. Not be like, I'm allowed to get angry. I need to feel my feelings. Right? Like, okay. But being present with anger, like, that feeling, you can be present with it and not shit on other people because you're feeling anger. Feel your anger. This was like the hugest transformational piece for me, was finally going, oh God, like, I'm not that. But this anger is moving through me, so I'm going to just sit with it, right? And I had people and teachers help me and guide me through. And then it was like, yeah, this anger is a mask. Just like we all have our masks. Whatever it might be, our masks. The things and the energies that we try to project ourselves to be in the world, rather than that truth of what we are. Pardon me, the mask, because we have to work so hard to put these masks on, anything around us that threatens to remove the mask or even put a little dent in it, we freak out. How dare you? You know, how dare you do that to me? It's like, oh my God, but you put yourself in this position, right? Which is often, you know, the delicateness of being the person that I am and discussing the things I discuss, because there's an element of hatred sometimes of people like, you can feel the venom, right? But then the discernment and the awareness is hella useful, because I don't have to take it on. I don't have to embody someone else's self-hatred. And yet, for a lot of us as light workers or empaths, that's essentially the programming that was laid down for us. We got disconnected and then started doing the biofeedback off of everybody else, and actually took on the energy of that constructed reality or that community. You know, and for those of us distancing and doing all this inner work and distancing and inner work and distance and inner work, more and more of that over the years has been happening, which is starting to pull the rug out. It's starting, so the people that are most resistant, the people that are most narcissistic, the people that are most passive aggressive, the people who are most like, this is the fucking world and I am committed to it kind of thing, it's going to be the toughest for them. Right? Because they are, for myself, like I can feel it and see it, that the world is coming undone, but they're just like, and, or you can like see the shadow. It's like, but the shadow has been so like, it comes out in these really almost like snaky, covert ways, you know? And I guess this is part of why I like show up here and I share, because I know that these are weird insights. I'm aware that it's not necessarily a conventional conversation. At the same time, I know that I'm not alone in having these sorts of experiences with, you know, the people that you're meant to get along with. You know, you're meant to want to hang out with these people. You're meant to have this sort of dynamic. And of course, any of us who have awakened, or any of us who have traveled a little, or, you know, moved away from home, had to set up shop in a new place. It's like, that energy journey for a soul is quite unique, in as far as like I'm still aware that a lot of my brothers and sisters are like invested unconsciously in the family pattern. I'm not saying it's right or wrong or good or bad, but people are acting out what they're expected to act out based on the family program. And especially as I move through life and start, you know, get older or whatever, and I'm now fully outside of the grid, as it were, as far as like I definitely should have been married with kids by now, and that just hasn't happened, right? And that's more rare now than it is the norm. And so I'm aware of watching my contemporaries, my brothers and sisters, walking that path, and just observing it and being like, okay. And what I respect are people who increasingly make choices a lot more consciously, but I also am aware that for a lot of us, we just assume things. There again, I think it was a cool share about assumptive reasoning. And this whole married with kids and jobs and family and eating and all of it, like literally everything we do and everything we consume is a conditioned program on some level. And so the more we can just like just be present, right? With it. And it's not like I'm opposed to marriage. It's not that. I think families are beautiful. I think people that are happy and well are awesome and, you know, doing great. And it's just what I'm aware of. It's like we get so frightened. It's like, I need to do what I'm expected to do, right? I need to fit into the program. I need to be part of the program. Otherwise, I don't know where I'll fit in. And this is something that is relevant, where I think a lot of us, like, we do connect, is that we don't fit in anywhere. Like, actually. And even our kind of physical relationships in the 3D reality probably wouldn't necessarily look like any of our old friendships necessarily. You know, there would be, and this is another thing along assumptive reasoning, is that people are just like, well, that's just how things are, or like, that's just what people are like, or that's da-da-da. And I'm like, no, it's not. That's all assumptions. it's all assumptive reasoning, and then ultimately via trauma and control. So trauma and control basically makes us all more easily manipulated, and then from a young age we get programmed really heavily, and then that's our base tone fucking belief system. And no wonder it's pretty base. It's based on war and violence and greed, and that we're just these lowly humans, right? So no wonder. And then we're programmed by the mainstream media to basically just figure out what you want to do, get a job, and get drunk to deal with the shittiness of life, basically, right? And yeah, Plasma Joe. I didn't even. I was singing Plasma Joe, and then I said, "Well, Plasma Joe," but that's like your name. Perception is reality, but like you can't say that to somebody who they're like, "No, this is the reality," and you're like, "Okay." And increasingly, this is something that is fascinating to me. It's like, it's so fascinating when you're like, wow, we literally all just were sitting in the same room just then, and that's your perception of that experience. How interesting. Because we all have a very different, oh god, so increasing as well, there's like these energies coming up, and I'm like, oh god, having to anchor it. When I say this about the depth and the intensity here and the density, it's like, oh, because as we continue to shift these bass tone, lower vibrashe, we're moving into like more expanded energy, but we're kind of not as good of, no, I wouldn't want to be derogatory to us at all. I'm like, no, we're awesome, obviously. What I'm getting the feel of is like, because we're shedding so much, it's like these energies, they're not bad or good, they're just different. And because they're different, it's for my ego, for my human ego of MJ, these new energies are weird, and I'm a bit like, because there's so much emptiness, there's so much sort of like, it's like a calm before a storm, and that, after everything that I've been through, getting a feeling of calm before storm, I'm like, oh my god, what's coming now? At the same time, I'm like, bring it. Bring it. I'm still standing, so whatever. I just go off on tangents, don't I? And then you guys. Yeah, right. I get that, because I annoy myself. And that's part of having empathy and compassion, is that, like, yeah, fair dues, I annoy people because I annoy myself. And what's happening in the world today, that like there is this energy of the empath of like, I want to save the world, I just don't want to have to hang out with people. And I get that sometimes. I am either sad or confused, or I sometimes see little collections of people. I just want to wrap them in little bubbles of light, where I'm like, oh god. But then I'm like, to each their own. Everyone's connected to source, Exactly. That's I've seen that. I've heard that before, that expression. I'm sure I saw another one that is relevant to some of me in my circle of like writers and stuff, but like there's like a skull, and the picture is something like that, of like, you're not strong enough to weather the storm, said the devil. And then I responded, it's you are. Like, he wrote you. Anyway, it's one of those things, like, if you're a bit of a nerd when it comes to writing and literacy, you often like correct people's misuse of language. And most people find that incredibly irritating in this day and age. I don't. I'm just not precious about my work. So when people are, editing or working, I'm somebody who likes to operate on the like everyone does their bit. And that usually it's like it's like the opposite of micromanaging, basically. It's like just people, if I'm intuitively guided, I just trust, right? At the same time, what I'm navigating here is as a company director, you guys. I'm a company director. All right. Um, what I'm navigating, which thank God, and again, divine timing, but having worked through a lot of the people pleasing stuff, is that just in my integrity as a woman in this world, I'm having to like have conversations with people just to be like, okay, like you don't do business like that, not with me. And if you want to do business like that, you can fuck off, okay? You know, like it's being so loving to people, but as somebody who's like been self-directed and is self-sovereign and quite kind of like leadership vibrashe, it's interesting navigating different energies of people from different backgrounds who just see the world differently and maybe don't see things. However, what I'm aware of is like those of us in communities like this, we're the leading edge. So we're all pioneers of our companies. We're all pioneers, not our companies in that way, but I mean like we're all pioneers of the new. We're all, you know, showing the way for this kind of new paradigm to unfold in the most divine, manifested way, right? And so you just gotta like let people be. But what's uncomfortable as I transition through this phase is my people pleasing is I can't do the people pleasing at all anymore. Because I can't run a business being a people pleaser. It's impossible because people again, just their patterning and where they are, people make excuses, people don't show up, people do various things that sometimes surprise me, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna have to have one of those tough love kind of conversations. And I never imagined that, obviously, because I was meant to be a famous movie star by now. There's a part of me that laughs and also a little part of me that cries because I'm like, do you remember that world? Like, it was just the 3D reality. Like, let's just be doctors and teachers and like do. And and like, oh my God. I'm like, and then this is why I talk about, because I have that background, the actor, the blah blah blah. The striving for fucking success and recognition, and then spiritual awakenings befalled me, and I was like, huh? Like, what is this world? And could never really pursue that in that way, and increasingly has just been like coming here. And same. It's like it's like people who aren't connected are increasingly going to be triggered and forced to cleanse, you know, forced to heal, basically. That's just where the energies are. That's just where the frequency is. It's like each cycle, I'm sure there'd be a way to like diagram this in like, but graphics, but it's like a recycle, uplift, and then review. And then it starts to go through the recycle, uplift, and then like a review. And that goes along with manifestation in as far as, hi Emily. Oh, that thing that ended up being cut out of the Fearless Life Guide, but desire, test, receive, DTR. So there's this infinity loop of manifestation where have the desire and the inspiration, and then we test ourselves. And again, here straight up, what I'm hearing is like our tests can be months long, by the way. It's not like, oh, that was a test. Oh my God. Yeah. No. Like the test is not necessarily that effing obvious until a whole bunch of things happen. You're like, oh my God, holy shit. That was that, connected to that, and then suddenly like a go. And then that's our manifestation. And that's the moment where we have to step in. We have to move toward. We have to actually do the action to step into it. But I gotta say, and it's relevant, right? Like being in a situation where I'm visiting family, it's like all that, i.e. it's behind you. I'm like that ancestry, that lineage, that paradigm of energies that are surrounding me has a lot to do with the shit and the baggage that I've been carrying all along from these early childhood experiences. And this is why it's coming up again, but because I've been doing so much work, it's behind me and I can feel it in my ass, like literally. In my legs. And for increasingly for months, the body's been kind of tired and achy and tender, i.e. DNA, nervous system stuff is getting like, hence relax more, keep doing the self-love stuff. And sometimes you just gotta go back to basics. This depth right now, the intensity, I've had to go back to the basics of self-care, as in just looking at myself going, I love you though. And you're like, ugh, I love you though, but you're still so loved. Just because you're feeling this way or thinking that or thinking you're never going to win or you're never going to get over it or you're never going to escape the burden of your own hell, just love yourself, just love. And I'm having to really claim that time because, again, no one else is going to do it. And if people aren't doing it, it's really obvious the depth of this stuff of transformation. And I'm so aware of like the compassion piece and how you really can't force this stuff with people or onto people, or which is why in essence, oh my gosh. And then somebody said this, and I don't for some reason, why am I saying this as a disclaimer, like I don't want this to offend anybody, but I really resonated. My brother-in-law randomly at one point was like, well, I kind of see like the internet as the second coming of Christ. And I'm like, pardon me? I'm like, the connectivity, right? The light, the new electrical pathways, the fact that it's helping us to all evolve and awaken, right? And that's part of how we're all connected, and we're even having these Christed conversations. How is that possible? Via the internet, right? And what is internet but just another evolutionary step in our own energetic projection? Like, oh, guys, we live on just one globe. We could probably communicate with one another. What's next? Interstellar travel, right? I'm pretty sure there's a plan that a whole bunch of people are off going to Mars. I'm like, there we go. So where interstellar humanity is now fully making moves, we just have a huge part of the mass program that is still going to work every day and doing their job and doing what they're normally doing, and so there, and no wonder why it's starting to be, it's all like getting broken up and Emily, yeah, let's go travel. Bonjour Flavia, how are you? Just then got a little annoyed with myself. Just how are you? Because I remember somebody saying like, could you stop it greats? And then like I do that to myself. I great plus I have. So the one time where I'm finally like getting dressed up. When was the last time I actually got dressed up? I don't even remember. So I'm like wearing high heels and like a skirt and stuff. So anyway, I'm just off on a tangent, off on a little ramble-tastic, just very ego superficial MJ. The one time this year where the universe provides me with an opportunity to look all like 3D glam. And do you see this? So I manifest this gorgeousness, and I've got this like underneath my actual blouse, I have this sort of like bustier white cream thing, and I don't know if you can see it in the light. Anyway, I must have been scratching it, but I've got like I don't know, I'm being disgusting, but it's like, I'm not actually, it's like light filled, like blah blah blah. But yeah, of course you break out right before you're meant to look all fancy. But I don't know. I know it'll be a fun day anyway. Yeah, just be love, be you. You guys are great. I'm gonna wear yours at least one more time, right? I have two pair. I have like a summer pair and like a winter pair, which again, like this is the one time this year, and then I'm trying to think of where. Like, I actually can't remember. I'm like, maybe 2017 was the last time I wore the other heels. And like, I I do. You feel nice, but like, let's be honest. I just want to sit down. Do wedges count? I think wedges are a little bit. Well, mine are wedges. Which now that I'm looking at them, wedges are deceivingly not as high as some high heels because of the wedge. So I got my summer heels are wedges, and my my winter heels are actual kind of heely boots. What am I talking about? Oh, this is like when the vanity piece comes in. A 3D reality. Molly's just a girl of the world who wants to be loved and accepted like everybody else. You know, and this is the piece, isn't it? I'm like, we're just a very immature humanity who is frightened and lost and is looking for their mommy, is looking for love, like straight up. That's kind of what's going on. And we think the money will bring love, or we think the right job or the right outfit or the right boyfriend or girlfriend or body size or whatever. You know, we're programmed very obviously, very consciously by the controllers. We're programmed to perpetuate the wound of separation and continue to distract ourselves by being programmed to think that what we're looking for is out there. It's not out there. We created all this, guys. Guys, how freaking awesome is that? Like, we created the world that we're seeing. But this is actually something else coming through in my meditation and relaxation time. Like, guys, we are creators. Like, I don't know about you guys, but have you ever woven a fucking universe together in your consciousness? I think you have. This is the thing. When you drop real deep, you're like, I remember. You know, I remember this. You remember that creation point. You remember the love. You remember the, like, we chose to be here. And we chose to change here as well, because we're epic change makers, continuing the flow of love, heart, vibrashe into the world. Like, to me, I'm just normal. I just forget that there's infinite frequencies, infinite realities, you know? And sometimes you just, every once in a while, and a lot of us were born into part of our soul's choice for growth and expansion, insight. But like our family members and the people that are around, those are some of our greatest teachers, right? Those are the people who trigger us the most, or bring out, we are them. And yet to transform the patterns of our ancestors, we have to face it and see it and feel it and own it and transform it. Not harbor it, not twist it around, not try to control it and fix it, you know, just like, this is what it is. Now it's time for me to be with the people who feel me and understand me, rather than feel forced to be with people that don't appreciate me and or you know, are where they are. I just want to say are where they are, because that's where they are, and I'm where I am, and I'm aware of stuff that people don't want to talk about. Often they don't want to. Fortunately, the more I share in earnest, the more the online world is really opening up to me and assisting me to get through this phase. So there's definitely some energies. So guys, I'm gonna go now. I love you all so much. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. I hope that you're having a magical and wonderful day in the world, and in your world, by the way. It's continual, and I meet people all the time. That's why I don't mind, like, no one's spiritual anymore. I'm like, they are. Everyone's waking up pretty. I love you. Have a great day, you guys. I'll try to send a photo of me looking fancy. It's so true, isn't it? The soul found vibrashe. So have a